The ocean has a way of hiding secrets. Vast, quiet, and seemingly endless, it carries stories that never make it back to shore. On one luxury cruise sailing along the American coastline, what began as an ordinary voyage slowly turned into a mystery that would haunt investigators, families, and an entire company for years. At first, there were no alarms, no screams, no clear sign that something was wrong. Just a private decision made behind closed doors. And then, days later, a diagnosis that would change everything. At the center of this story was a man who believed he understood risk, control, and power, and a woman whose past few people truly knew. Their lives intersected briefly in an isolated setting far from land, rules, and familiar boundaries. What followed would raise uncomfortable questions about trust, responsibility, and the thin line between personal choices and criminal accountability. This is not a story about shock or spectacle. It is a story about silence, consequences, and a truth that emerged slowly, piece by piece. The man was known among his colleagues as reliable and disciplined. In his mid-40s, he had built a stable career in the American hospitality industry, eventually rising to a senior management role for a cruise line based in the United States. His job required frequent travel, long stretches away from home, and the ability to manage people under pressure. He was not a public figure, but within his professional circle, he was respected. He followed company policy, avoided workplace drama, and kept his private life largely separate from his career. Friends described him as cautious. He did not drink excessively, did not gamble, and was known to keep routines even while traveling. He had been married once, divorced amicably, and had no children. By the time this particular cruise began, he believed he had reached a phase of life defined by stability rather than risk. He had no known history of serious illness and maintained regular medical checkups, a habit encouraged by his employer due to the demands of international travel. The woman worked under his supervision, though not directly in his department. She was younger, in her early 30s, and employed in a role that placed her frequently in contact with senior staff. She was described as intelligent, reserved, and professional. Unlike many employees who saw cruise work as temporary, she had been with the company for several years, moving between contracts and ships. Her background, however, was far less clear to those around her. She rarely spoke about her past. Records would later show that she had moved frequently across states, sometimes holding short-term jobs, sometimes disappearing from official employment records altogether. To coworkers, she appeared self-contained. She socialized occasionally, but avoided close friendships. No one recalled her ever discussing long-term plans, family, or health issues. She was present, polite, and distant all at once. The cruise itself was a routine voyage, a multi-day journey marketed as a luxury experience, complete with fine dining, entertainment, and carefully managed schedules. For staff, it was work as usual, long shifts, strict rules, and an unspoken understanding that professionalism was expected at all times. Still, cruise ships are unique environments. They are enclosed worlds, physically isolated, where normal boundaries can blur. Over time, the man and the woman began speaking more frequently. At first, their conversations were brief and work-related. Overlapping schedules led to shared meals and staff areas. Small talk turned into longer discussions. There was no obvious sign of flirtation noticed by others, but something subtle was developing. Both were adults, both understood company policies that discouraged personal relationships between supervisors and subordinates, but enforcement was inconsistent, and discretion often allowed such matters to go unnoticed.
The environment played a role. Days at sea can feel disconnected from reality. There is no easy way to step away. No familiar support systems, no clear separation between work and personal time. The steady rhythm of the ship, the absence of daily distractions, and the sense of being temporarily removed from ordinary life can lower defenses. Decisions feel contained within the moment, as if consequences exist somewhere far beyond the horizon. At some point during the voyage, their relationship crossed a line. Accounts differ on who initiated the encounter, but investigators later concluded it was consensual. It happened privately, in a crew cabin, away from passengers and other staff. There was no indication of force or coercion. Both parties were aware of the risks associated with workplace relationships. What was not known, at least by one of them, was the presence of a far more serious risk. After the encounter, there was no immediate fallout. They did not continue the relationship openly. In fact, they appeared to distance themselves, returning to professional interactions. The cruise concluded without incident. Passengers disembarked, crew rotated assignments. Life, on the surface, continued as normal. It was only days later, back on land, that the man began to feel unwell. At first, the symptoms were mild: fatigue, fever, muscle aches. Given his travel history, he assumed it was a common viral infection. Still, following his usual habits, he scheduled a medical appointment. Blood tests were ordered, partly routine, partly precautionary. The results would change his life. He tested positive for HIV. The diagnosis came as a shock. He had no prior history that would explain it. His previous medical records were clear. He had been tested within the past year as required for certain travel clearances, and those results had been negative. The timeline pointed to recent exposure. As the reality settled in, so did confusion, fear, and a growing sense of betrayal. Doctors explained the basics, the treatment options, the prognosis. HIV was no longer the automatic death sentence it once was, but it remained a serious, life-altering condition. Treatment would be lifelong. Disclosure would be complex. Emotional consequences would be unavoidable. And then there was the question that kept returning. How did this happen? The man began reviewing his recent history. There were no other partners, no known exposures. The cruise stood out as the only deviation from his usual behavior. With reluctance, he reported this to his employer's medical liaison, who advised him to speak with public health authorities. What followed was a careful, confidential process, one designed to balance privacy with responsibility. Health officials began tracing potential sources. The woman was identified as a possible contact. When approached, she did not immediately deny involvement. According to records, she appeared calm, cooperative, and composed. She acknowledged the encounter. When asked about her health status, however, her answers were less direct. Further investigation revealed that she had been diagnosed with HIV years earlier. Medical records showed she was aware of her condition. She had received counseling and treatment recommendations. There was no indication that she had disclosed her status to the man prior to their encounter. Whether this omission was intentional or driven by fear, denial, or something else would later become a central question. In many U.S. states, knowingly exposing someone to HIV without disclosure can carry serious legal consequences. The laws vary, but they are rooted in the principle of informed consent. Health authorities referred the case to law enforcement, not as an accusation, but as a matter requiring review. Before any formal charges could be filed, events took an unexpected turn. The woman did not return to her next scheduled assignment. Calls were unanswered, messages were not returned. At first, this was not unusual. Cruise workers sometimes change contracts or take time off without notice. But when she failed to appear for a mandatory health review, concern grew. Days later, her body was found aboard a ship docked for maintenance. She was discovered in a restricted area, one not typically accessed by regular crew. There were no immediate signs of violence, no clear explanation, just another body in another quiet space, far from passengers and public view. The discovery raised immediate questions. How had she gained access? Why was she there? And what had happened in the hours leading up to her death? An autopsy was conducted. The cause of death was determined to be non-violent. There were no injuries consistent with an attack. Toxicology reports indicated the presence of prescription medication, but not in quantities that clearly suggested intentional harm. The official ruling would later list the death as undetermined, a classification used when evidence does not point conclusively in one direction. Still, the timing was impossible to ignore. A pending investigation, a serious allegation, and now a death. Speculation spread quickly within the company. Some whispered about pressure, fear, or guilt. Others suggested medical complications. Social media would later amplify these theories, but investigators remained cautious. There was no note, no recorded statement, no clear indication of intent. Law enforcement reviewed her background in detail. Her medical history showed periods of treatment followed by gaps. Her employment record revealed instability. There were signs of financial stress, though nothing extreme. Interviews with coworkers painted a picture of a woman who kept emotional distance, who rarely asked for help, and who avoided conflict. The man, meanwhile, was placed on administrative leave, not as punishment, but as a precaution. He cooperated fully with investigators. His statements remained consistent. He expressed regret, confusion, and anger, but did not seek to assign blame publicly. Privately, he struggled with the weight of the diagnosis and the knowledge that answers might never fully come. Without the woman's testimony, the legal case stalled. Prosecutors reviewed the evidence, but ultimately declined to file charges posthumously. There was no trial, no verdict, just a file marked closed, with unanswered questions remaining inside. The aftermath was complex. The cruise line reviewed its policies, strengthening health disclosure requirements and revising protocols around workplace relationships. Public health agencies used the case as an example in training materials, focusing on the importance of disclosure and regular testing. The man began treatment, adjusted his life, and eventually returned to work in a different capacity. For the families involved, closure was elusive.
The woman's relatives declined public comment. The man chose privacy, speaking only once through a written statement emphasizing the importance of awareness and responsibility, without naming anyone or seeking sympathy. This case does not offer simple conclusions. It sits at the intersection of personal choice, medical ethics, and legal responsibility. It challenges assumptions about who is vulnerable and who is in control. It reminds us that silence, whether born of fear or denial, can carry consequences far beyond a single moment. At sea, the horizon always looks the same, calm, endless. But beneath the surface, currents move in unseen ways, carrying stories that only emerge long after the ship has returned to shore. In this case, what happened on that cruise did not stay there. It followed two lives, altered one, ended another, and left behind a truth that continues to resist easy understanding.